Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 157.
Well, and if you're posting continually things that are disparaging and downers, you probably won't get any more information. Or
that's what Twitter's for.
That's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, that's
totally.
what Twitter's for.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
This is Keith Parsons, and I'm here with Jennifer Huber and Samuel Clements. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I thought we could just spend a couple minutes talking about how information about things in our industry flows around. So what's the flows from vendors, from users?
Information, not packets.
Information, communication.
Information, not packets. What's the communication flow? So let's say a company has a new product.
Okay.
How in the other industries that I've been in, there's a official press release. They go to some PR firm. They write up a half page, a 1-page issue. They say this is what happens, and then how does it trickle down into the world? You both work for VARs, and so you kind of have a unique position. You have on one side enterprises, your customers, on the other side the vendors who are, they want you to then go and push that stuff out. So what are the information flows you see right now, and how do you use it to stay on top of what's going on in the industry?
Well, part of it is getting the PR Newswire updates that you may have already subscribed to. Maybe you're subscribing to like Google News Alerts or something like that to be in the know when something is communicated from vendor of choice.
Just for those who don't do that with Google, what's you want to describe that a little more?
You can just put in a search query in Google News and be alerted whenever anybody writes an article that matches the term or matches the company and whatnot, and you can just get an email digest about news on a given topic.
Those of us that are over 40 remember RSS feeds.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's today's version of an RSS
and
feed.
they're still available today. I have probably 10 of them that I've set up in Google, and then when anyone posts something of those terms, so if you don't know how to do it, look it up, Google it.
Yeah, so that's one way to get news is just following a vendor or a term or something like that. You could also subscribe to the vendor's YouTube channel. Some are better at keeping them up to date with technical content or marketing content. Sometimes they will just update their website and have like a little, 5-minute video blurb on product XYZ. You may get helper communiques from your reps at the vendor company that keep you up to date. And maybe they have an internal communication that's not necessarily public that they'll send. There's lots of different ways to get information. You may tune into podcasts to find out about things and when people are interviewed. And
so, we have podcasts in our industry. Sam, you've got one. I've got one. Royale's got one.
Yeah.
You actually have two. I forgot. we didn't bring our whiskey, so we couldn't do that one. But those are kind of independent. What's the information flows that are like official from the vendors outside? there is a press release.
There are vendors that have podcasts
as
well.
How do they give you the information on product? Hey, the new Cisco AP just came out. What was the process flow for that?
Yeah, so as a VAR, you typically have some sort of an arrangement with your manufacturer. Typically, the stuff announced early under embargo or under NDA. That dovetails into early field trials and how you get exposure to early access to code and features, and there's a whole process of
beta testing.
Not even just beta testing, but taking feedback from users and pushing that into the manufacturer to say this user is looking for this feature for this type of an environment.
So you're saying is even before the press release.
Oh yeah,
you're in much earlier on that.
I've been involved in
most
some
typically.
UI feedback
changes.
Changes.
There's advocacy programs. For example, the Cisco Champions program. There's a bunch of advocacy programs that are social media facing, where those manufacturers go and they engage thought leaders in the industry, if you will. But by and large, the official process is for example, let's pick on Cisco because they're the gorilla in the room, if you will. Cisco Live is their flagship marketing show, and they time most of their big product launches to release at Cisco Live. And so you go to Cisco Live US or EU or pick a Cisco Live event, and there's typically excitement around that product being generated because, hey, look, here it is. We released it. I've got it in my hand. I can show you, talk about it. In addition to all the various and sundry news releases that happened at that time. And so keeping on top of those as a VAR, you hope that you have a bit of a heads up on that stuff that's coming. As an enterprise, you can occasionally get access to that information if you have a great relationship with your manufacturer. That dovetails into the conversation around how you consume hardware and technology. And if you are quote unquote loyal to a vendor, those vendors may come back to you and ask you for information and feedback on their products, how to make it better. You then get in early on that cycle. And then as those products or features get developed, you get early access to those. So there's an interesting, almost incestuous relationship sometimes with the people purchasing the solutions, the people positioning and selling them, the manufacturers that are actually building them, and that cycle of information can be quite erratic, even at the best of times.
Yeah, and if you're not part of that that care and feeding cycle, then you're probably going to be relying on the vendor's website to be updated with white papers or technical documents or design guides or like video.
Or you're a smaller company that doesn't qualify,
exactly.
or you're in another country where it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, I've actually seen even really small companies that are, small single branch companies that are ultimately loyal to a vendor that get information before some of even a lot of the really large companies. It's a lot of times it's trial by fire. If you are given information and you then turn around and leak that information or do something bad with that information or start sharing it with your 5,000 closest friends on Twitter, those relationships close up really quick.
Well, those people have small Twitter followings.
Right.
So then independent. So that's when the vendor says this product does XYZ. And then the VAR says, yes, this does XYZ because they sell it. Where do people go to find out a more independent view of the same thing? Either other people who have the same product and they're already using it, or independent voices.
Well, there's nowadays a slew of independent bloggers that have access to using the software in question or the hardware in question that will tell you what they think, what their opinion is on the product XYZ. And maybe they do that from their website, from their blog. They could do that maybe from their employer's blog. It really all depends upon where that content is posted. You may see it in a company's forum, like their chat forum or blog forum on a site. But when you start sharing your opinion on a site like that, you're kind of beholden to that website owner's decisions on when they post it, how often they post it, whether or not they back down from vendor XYZ saying we don't like the tone of this post. So therefore, maybe something that you wrote will only be around for a little bit because it ruffled somebody's feathers and then it goes away. And that's kind of like what happens if you're not like running your own .com, then you're kind of beholden to the vendor or the company that's hosting your opinion for making decisions on whether or not your opinion is going to be left to stand once it's challenged.
Well, and I can, though I don't always think it's the right thing to do, but if you're a vendor and you have a forum and someone puts disparaging information about your product or company on that forum, that's your right.
You can totally limit
to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's their right. But if you are writing something, there are other avenues of getting information out.
Oh, for definitely. But I was saying let me use a name for an example, like Computer World or Network World or like Tech Target, something like that. Like maybe you have contributed your content to a site like that, just totally as a random example, and maybe they get pressure from a vendor, or
they still have advertisers. This hasn't changed since newspaper days.
No,
they're advertisers buy space, but then someone has to fill content to have something to sell.
So what I'm saying is more like once you release that to somebody else to host it, then you can't. It's like out of your hands. Like your opinion, could disappear tomorrow because you're not writing your opinion on your .com. It's not under your control. Like if you're ranting on Facebook. Like you're on Facebook, right? It's not your content. It's ceased to be yours because it's out of your control. So if you're concerned about your opinion being under your control, then that's going to make your decision, based upon I want it to be on my website and not in Facebook or Tech Target or whatever.
Well, and if you're posting continually things that are disparaging and downers, you probably won't get any more information.
So
Or
that's what Twitter's
Yeah,
for.
that's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, that's
totally.
what Twitter's for. Or the you use both. I think you use the term embargo.
Yeah.
So if people, I mean, that's we hear that with, you know, I don't know, shipping coming into a country.
Yeah.
What do you mean by embargo in this sense?
So information that's shared to you that you have agreed to not release publicly or in any other form until a certain date, until a certain trigger occurs. And that's a green light from some organization or a prearranged upon date or, you know, whatever. I was first really introduced to that term by way of the Tech Field Day crew.
Mm-hmm.
Tech Field Day crew is another great way to get content. They're always out in Silicon Valley doing videos of whatever event is going on. And up to that point, I had always heard it referred to as an NDA, which is an entirely different beast. An embargo is an NDA for average mere mortals.
Yeah.
Is
It's
what
something you don't have to sign. You just kind of agree to. If you break it, you don't get to play anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes people push that to the minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of I want to be first to announce this thing, so I'm going to announce it. Or some people say next week I'm going to release information, but I won't tell you who it is.
Technically not an embargo violation.
It's not an embargo violation. You don't even know who it is, but just to you know, get us all ready for it. So how do you get your information that you learn? How do you personally publish it?
I personally publish my opinions on my blog. I've done some minor posts for what would you call it? Like an intermediate website host, like a Tech Target or something like that. I've done some of that, but not nearly as much as just, you know, posting my own opinion on my own site.
And so one of the things we post on our sites are opinions. The other thing I've found is you post a technical, how to do this, or why does that happen, or you have one on how to set up an AP to be in survey mode. One of the things I found, I don't know if shocking is the word, but I was kind of surprised, was the first time I was looking up a question, I Googled it, and my own post came up.
Yeah.
And I thought I was like so unique. Can you believe that? I Googled and it was my own answer. Has it ever happened to you?
All the time.
Definitely. Well, when I first started blogging, and I say that with bunny quotes, it was just me putting all of the stuff that I found in release notes, all of those gotchas and stuff, was just basically me transcribing that so I could find it again. Because just because you read this little tiny thing buried in a 57-page release notes or design guide doesn't mean that you're going to remember exactly like what the inch width is for the 2.4 gigahertz waveform, because I can never remember what that is.
4.91.
Yeah, but you do this all the time.
5, 2,
But you know, yeah. So things like
We're
that.
doing our finger things here if you
in the
can't
air,
see.
yeah. So it was just a way for me to basically make my notes public so that I could find them again easily and not have them trapped in, you know, who knows what the note-taking app was at the time. It's long since dead, I'm sure. So that's what I started. I was just making notes. And I would even use like the bracket notes just so that people like wouldn't see it and be like, this isn't really a blog. No, it's not. It's notes.
Just notes. But I think everyone who blogs at some point has that same experience. So don't be afraid to blog.
Yeah, no.
Start a blog.
Yeah.
And then we have other social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Slack. Which of those do you play in, and which ones do you think people should get involved in?
Well, if it wasn't for Jennifer, I wouldn't be on Twitter from so many years ago. So I have her to thank for that start. Twitter has devolved a little bit over time. It's really difficult to keep track of. It's really difficult to keep on top of.
Yeah.
And by nature, it's short, bursty comments, and those are really hard to get a cohesive thought out of sometimes. I tend to find myself preferring to go into the Slack groups where I can read paragraphs of comments and where somebody can state an opinion, then back it up with another opinion, and then back that up with fact or, you know, whatever. They can describe how they arrived at somewhere, and you can more readily engage in a dialogue with somebody. To me, I find that more useful than the 140, 280 character burst of shots across the bow.
Yeah, it's more like watching a ping pong match. I like Slack for the same reason. It's more conversational. I think it has a limit on size, though.
Yeah, your stuff gets deleted after a certain time.
Not just that size of the
Group
group,
size.
group size,
Oh,
and
okay.
not from some mechanical or hard fast number that Slack says you can have 120 people in here. It's just not. The conversations get too big. you can't. It takes way too many hours to play in it,
Yeah,
rather than. In Twitter, you can spend 10 minutes and catch up on a bunch
waiting
of stuff.
in line for the plane or
yeah.
whatnot.
And Slack, I've got to focus, and then someone says something, and there's a conversation between 4 people, and it takes 15 minutes to read it. But that's the value.
Yeah.
And so if that was thousands of people, you couldn't maintain that.
Oh, no.
So keeping Slack channels, and you help manage the Wi-Fi Pro Slack channel. New logo, by the way. Thank you.
Yes. That
thank
was
you,
Adrian. Yeah.
Adrian does a lot of good stuff for us. Do you feel that Slack channel is getting too busy? Or does it still have some excess capacity?
No, I think that there's. I mean, when May and I started that, I think the point of it was come one, come all. Let's move the shots across the bow off of Twitter into Slack, and I think that mindset hasn't changed. There's not 50,000 Wi-Fi people in the world, so I think that we'll cap out at some point. But I think that. I heard an interesting opinion today. I was sitting next to a buddy in the conference here, and he said, sometimes I don't want to chime in because I feel like my questions are too entry level, and it sort of struck me as maybe there's an elitist I don't know, thing that may be happening that some people are afraid to engage, and so the conversation sort of went to
would he have engaged in Twitter?
That's a great
does
question.
that feel like as a lower entry bar?
I don't know, but I think the answer is maybe like a beginner's channel, or maybe even some better containerization of some of the data, or some of the conversations, so that we keep things by topic. That way, if you don't want to go be flooded by people who wonder why you shouldn't be using channel 3, don't go in there. Go over there. And so I think that there's some value in Slack, at least from my perspective. But I think that's driven by the admins. So
do you have,
go me.
And I mean, you're an admin on this. Do you have the ability to see, like I'll just admit it. If there's a Slack channel, I join it because I don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
And I see people joining and unjoining and leaving channels, and I'm like,
why would you leave?
Why would you leave? Don't you? Something good important could be here. But you have a point. Some of those things that
Well, there's some channels that the topic is clearly identified in the channel, and it's like that's not relevant. I'm not going to join that.
There's some cool things in car porn.
You know?
I don't even like cars, but I go to car porn just because there's some cool pictures there.
I have a different take. I wanted to put in my 2 cents about how I view the like when I say something on Twitter, I know that it's completely public and out there, and I feel like I know that somebody may poke what I say with a stick, because it's public in Twitter. When I'm in a Slack group, it feels like it's, I personally would like to feel that it's like a safe space. So if I make like an off-color comment, it's not taken out of context and like potentially used against me. And I think that the Come One, Come All Slack group, I don't know who all those people are. So I'm way less likely to like say something stupid because I don't know that it's safe. And like the internet, Twitter, like I know it's not safe. So I compose myself accordingly.
So kind of a semi-public
Yeah.
Slack. And the other thing is on Twitter, you can search it.
Yeah.
I mean, I forget something I posted or something I read. I can always go find it again because it's forever.
Yeah.
Slack, I don't, like you said,
Slack is not
it kind
forever,
of cycles
and,
through
yeah.
and
Yeah. And
kind of like a baby Snapchat,
Yeah. Yeah.
but for textual things.
Yeah. So I think that I'm definitely less hesitant to like I want to know that it's safe. Like if I say something stupid or rude, or that somebody's not going to be like, "Did you see what Jennifer said?" and like screenshot it and like so. But if I do that on Twitter, then I know that it's so. I don't know. That's just my take on my weird thing with sharing of information in chats.
Well, this whole topic was about how information about our industry is shared. We started with from the vendor side and went to the more independent side. Just one last quick question. What's your favorite way to find out that there was Brand C came out with a brand new AP? What's your favorite way to find out whether or not you want to get more information about it?
Probably from the Slack group. That's probably the way that I would hear about it, through the grapevine, because I don't really pay attention to Twitter much unless people are talking specifically to me, because there's so much noise.
Sam?
How do I determine whether or not I want to go
I mean,
No
there'd
more.
be like what's the piece of, I mean, because obviously you can get deep and really get into it with its product guides and everything.
I do that
But-
for all of them.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
it for as many of them as I
And
can
then
get my
there's like
hands
the
on.
technical webinars,
Yeah,
product release webinars.
I try and scoop it all up.
Yeah, totally.
As far as I'm concerned, you get the more exposure to the data that you get, the better the chances are you're going to find that nugget that you didn't know before.
I will hear definitely a unique opinion, like a gathering of unique opinions from the Slack group that maybe I hadn't considered. Like, oh, I know this product's coming out, but like, oh, somebody's really been testing it, and like they know that it doesn't do this, that, or the other thing. Yeah, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't
That's
know
again
that.
why I'm really jealous of your job. You get paid to actually stay on top of things.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm partial to it.
That's one of those benefits. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate you talking with the group. Again, how can people track you down, Jennifer?
You can find me on Twitter at Jennifer Lucille. And if you mention me, you can rest assured that I will definitely chat back with you. You can find me on jenniferlucille.com, where I blog about things like sometimes Wi-Fi, sometimes traveling, sometimes making furniture. You never know what you're going to get. It's kind of random.
Good combination.
And on Twitter, you can find me at Samuel_Clements, and I blog at sc-wifi.com.
And we'll have those all in the show notes. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Tools review.
In this section, we're going to talk a little bit about another one of the pages that's in the Wireless LAN Professionals notebook that we put together for WLPC. And this is an IP subnetting chart. As IT professionals and coming from the route switch world, we've thought about and talked about IP subnetting for a long time. We just wanted to add this little place so if you had to and you didn't have any other calculator or other tool with you and you needed to do some IP subnetting, there's some pieces there to help you. It's also useful when you're talking to your customers to be able to point to and show on a chart that looks official that you can say, see, this is why you want this subnet. This is the mask we're doing, how big it is, how many clients are available, what's the network address, etc. Just a useful piece of information that's kind of nice to have. Our next version, we're going to add to it a bunch of reserved ranges so that we'll also have reserved ranges there sitting there, as well as, we did some binary to decimal conversion so you can see what the wildcards are for your subnet mask as well. And on the new one, that's not on the current one, but the next one out, we're also will have multicast ranges. All these things are things that people asked for once they saw this chart. And they said, well, could you also add? And the answer is yeah. So if you have anything else you'd like to add or you want to carry around with you with your notebook that you use as a reference, just let us know and we'll get them included in the next version of the WLAN Pros notebook. Thank you. This conference isn't about me or Fernay or Matthew or any vendor. It's about you. It's about you. It's about you. How many of you is this your first WLPC? Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess I should ask the reverse. How many have been to WLPCs before? Oh. You can't raise your hands for both those questions, guys. Like I see the whole crowd lift up. The reason for WLPC is I like attending conferences. And I used to attend Comdex religiously every year for 20 years. And Networld, and then Networld plus Interop, and then they dropped the Networld, and now it's just Interop. And the whole transition, and yet every single conference was focused on the vendors because they pay all the bills. They pay all the bills, so they get to do whatever they want. It's about vendor booths and about vendor sessions and about vendor. And I wanted just to go hang out with my friends. And if you went to a conference, you spent most of the time just hanging with your friends talking tech. And then you'd go to a couple cool sessions and then walk the floor and hear all the vendors talk to you. So I had this idea. What if we had a conference that had no vendors? And that's a really stupid idea from a business standpoint because they're the ones who pay for everything. I said, but if you made one, would it work? So I happened to try one. I just said, I'm willing to throw some money at this. If it works, great. If not. And we held a conference of no vendors, just people who want to come and talk tech to each other. And we're on our 9th conference now. So it worked. I guess there's an audience of people who want to do the same things I do. So this is about you. My job here is more of this fancy word. I can't even pronounce it correctly, especially up in Portugal. I could say it even fancier. But it's not about me being the talent.
An impresario only orchestrates and gets things ready. You guys are the ones doing it all. So a quarter of you showed up for a boot camp so you could earn a certification, learn more information over the last weekend. A third of you in this room will be presenting, and 100% of you should be engaged. This conference is about you, and it's about the things you want. The content that we have, we send out in a survey. We had 50-something requests. We surveyed them out, took the top ones, and those are the ones that came in. The ones that came in and ranked at the top got longer time. The ones that ranked lower down got less time. That's how it works. So that's kind of what we're here for. So if you're a speaker, and that's a third of you out there, it's okay. Be nervous. You can do this if you want. Other people in the audience are feeling the same thing. They say this thing about if you're nervous, imagine the audience naked. I'm saying don't do that. You do not want to do that in this room. You prepared. You have skills. You had an idea, and enough people voted and said, I want to learn about what that person has to say. There are people here that want to hear from what you have to say. Smile. It's supposed to be fun. If you're nervous, just get over it. Some of you will be doing the first talk you've ever done in your life. Cool. Some of you have been doing it 100 times. Cool. Doesn't matter. It's whether or not we can just transfer information. Summarize. When you're done, don't just let it go. It's kind of a good idea to go, I tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I tell you what I'm telling you, then I tell you what I told you. That kind of works. But don't do this. Don't set the stage. I hate it when they do that. Yeah, the situation is BYOD is attaching into our networks, and so thus we must, and everyone in the room knows we have BYOD on our networks. We don't need to repeat it. This is not a marketing conference. We're not trying to have you sell us anything. We already know the scenario, so don't set up the scenario. We know what the scenario is. Especially for those of you who are doing 10 talks, you got 10 minutes, dude. That's it. And if you take 4 minutes setting up, and this is why, just jump right in. This is where it goes. When I was in university, I had an English professor who said, we're now, and this was years ago, she was kind of prescient at the time, thinking ahead. She goes, we're now in a time when you have to present the conclusion first and then supporting material. And coming from an academics has always been premise, support, how many data points you had, conclusion. And she goes, throw the whole thing on your head, give the conclusion, and someone's reading this via email, and email is going to be the new thing. Yeah, I was in college a long time ago. So she was predicting email is going to be the new thing, and it's the subject line. Put your answer there. Then put a little more detail. The detail comes after, especially in 10 talks. Start with the conclusion. Don't end with the conclusion, because you won't have time. It's about the tech. Now, I know all of you work for some company. Somebody's paying you money. It could be your own company. It could be somebody else's company. You could be an employee. You could be a contractor. You could be a VAR. I don't care. It's not about the vendor-specific pieces. It's about the technology. Now, if you're going to be talking from Mist, we know you're from Mist. Say you're from Mist. Your slides can say Mist. But that's not the reason you're here. You're not representing your company. You're representing the technology and what you know. So please share those. Remember, if you have slides, forward them to me. Actually, the very last slide on this little section has forward them to Matthew, because I'll just take them and send them to Matthew anyway. And it's matthew@wlmpros.com. And then we'll take the video from that Ben shooting from Prime Image Media, thank you, Ben, and tie it with the presentation and post them up on our website. Part of the idea of WLPCs is to share information. Share, free. All of the sessions are going to be online. They're all free because knowledge is like manure. You know, the stuff that comes out of the back of a cow. If you hold on to it really tight, you stink. If you spread it around, it helps things grow. So let's take the knowledge we have here and help other people grow. Nobody wants to stink. We're all in a single ballroom. We've tried different techniques of having half the group split and go to another ballroom and bring them together and take them apart and go back and forth, and found the one most effective is we all sit here together. The downside of that is there might be some subjects you don't care about. The other downside is we don't get to have as many sessions because we can't have twice as many contacts. The result, though, is we came up with 10 talks. Part about 10 talks are they're only 10 minutes long. So if you're sitting here and the topic that the guy's talking about doesn't interest you, just wait. He'll be gone in 10 minutes. There'll be another one coming right behind it. So if you're not interested, just hang around. It's okay. We have 55-minute sessions. We have a couple of 30-minute sessions. We're trying to see where those go. And 10s. By the way, those of you who are talking in 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes. I've got a timer over here. You'll be watching, and I'll give you the wave, and when it's your time. You can give an hour-long talk in 10 minutes. I've seen a whole bunch of them. It's not just that you talk fast. Throw the fluff away. All the parts that you're telling someone who doesn't understand the industry, you can make those go away. Just get to the meat of it. So we do have some 30-minute sessions as well. We tried those in Phoenix last year. They worked pretty good. The only downside is if you've got a 30-minute session, for sure you have an hour session and you have to do it in 30 minutes. It's not the other way around. We're not taking a 10-minute and trying to stretch it to 30. We still want compact, tight as much as we can get. We have a maker session this afternoon. We have learned through maker sessions what not to do. We've tried a couple of techniques and had some fun, but found people's mechanical skills of assembling things were not what I thought they were. We just did one in Bogota. How long did it take? So for Day and I practiced. We timed doing this thing. We got it down to like 5 minutes. And 45 minutes in, people are like, how does this screw go? So we assembled all your things for you. The assembly's all done. So this time we're going to try a maker session. It's actually not a making, it's a doing session. So it's more, it should be ready, and we're just going to jump right in and do the experimental part. Tonight we have 2 evening sessions. These are not sponsored. They don't pay us any money. They're just here. We have the room. They have the people here, and there's an audience here. So if you want to attend, they will entice you with beer and pizza or something to eat and drink. And so both of which, it's just extra free training. You're here. Last, be kind. Don't fire up your Blake. You got nothing? Okay, just checking. He's got this nice little fun toy. Or if you have pineapples or Porta-Pack Havocs or anything that can cause Wi-Fi harm, they're kind of fun. And you're finally in an audience where people could appreciate how cool you are that you were able to do it. I mean, because you could do it at any other place and they just go, oh man, the Wi-Fi sucks. Here it's like, oh, that guy caused the Wi-Fi. We already have Wi-Fi that sucks. So you can't make it any worse. Don't mess with everyone. If someone's up here and you don't agree with them, don't boo. Don't throw things. We did have on our first one, we put Nerf guns on the tables so people could shoot if they didn't like it. And it was more just, if they say any vendor marketing, you can shoot them. That's okay. So if they're talking and they're very marketing based, then you can wad up paper and throw those. That's okay. But be kind. These are your people you're going to go have beers with later and talk to. And for what I've seen in this industry for the last 16 years, you might be working for one vendor today, and you're going to work for somebody else tomorrow. So be kind, and that will help. Just a little piece of information that I wanted to add to this is something you probably know, Maslow's hierarchy. Ever see this? It starts at the bottom, you need food, water, and as it climbs up, you get more and more things. So at the top, you're self-actualized. I don't really believe this, because I believe an examined life is not worth living. You shouldn't examine your own life, but that's just my own personal lifestyle. But I think really it's the Wi-Fi is sitting underneath. But if you've done this for a while, you really know that it's actually the battery. That's what we really need. Actually, this is just a setup for this thing called Bloom's taxonomy. I told you about Maslow's hierarchy because you'd heard about it. You might not have heard of this Bloom's taxonomy. Anyone who's been in course development, education, it's a way of looking at how is something about knowledge transfer going to be transferred. At the bottom, we have the really simple things. You memorized A, B, C, D, and a little 3-year-old can sing the ABC song. You memorize something. And then as you go higher and higher, it makes whether or not you understood it, can you apply the knowledge you had? We would like the presentations that we have here to climb this stack. We understand stacks. We live down at the layer 1 and layer 2 with Wi-Fi. From our presentations today, if you're presenting today or tomorrow, try to get as high as here as possible. We would like to help people not be self-actualized, but be able to synthesize, take information from multiple sources and say, oh, if this does this and this does this over here, what if, and then come up with a better idea. So hopefully we'll be up the stack here today in more of the evaluation. At the very top, it's how do we create new information from the old information we received. from learning theory. We're adults. We learn different than kids. So we want to tie something we knew that we learned to something we already have. Children have the ability to learn new things that just exist, and they just plop them in their head. As adults, we have to have something to tie it to. So if we can synthesize and take multiple pieces of information together, we can end up with more creative pieces. With that, we'll get these slides for you. This is just some more detail if you want to know the words to use at each one of these levels. If you use different words, we help describe things differently. So we like assembling and arranging and appraising and arguing. All the way at the top, argue. We're really good at that, huh? But in order to argue, you have to understand all the basic concepts. So that was just an idea to get us kind of started. Speakers, Matthew at WLANpros.com, and we'll get those tied in so we can get them on the website as soon as possible. Those who can't be here like to come back and review them later. For those of you who are presenting, I don't want to scare you anymore, but they have a pretty long tail. All of the presentations we've ever had over the last 9 conferences are all available online, and people keep downloading them years later. Years they'll be listening to you talk. It might make you feel good or might you feel scared, either way. And have fun. That's what we're here for.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.